What's up, nerds? It's MTG Man, and welcome to another Build Your Own Precon in quotation marks. Today is Teval, Arbiter of Virtue. So the quotation marks, of course, is, here's the scenario. You pull Teval in draft, and you decide, I like this guy. I'm building a deck around him. Well, here's $45, which is about the price of a precon, in cards that you would then put into that deck. Now, if you have to buy Teval to make this deck, it's probably going to cost you like 50 something. It's a little bit more when you have to buy the commander. But anywho, let's just jump into it. So Teval, Arbiter of Virtue is a 5-mana 6/6 in, black, green, blue colors. Flying, lifelink, spells you cast have Delve. Each card you exile from your graveyard while casting those spells pays for 1. And whenever you cast a spell, you lose life equal to its mana value. So one of the most interesting things about that is its mana value, not mana cost, of course. So if you take something like an X spell, mana value is going to be determined by the the converted mana cost, basically. So an X spell, if you put 5 into X, you're not losing 8 life, you're just losing 3, because that's what the spell's always going to cost because of the colored pips. Or something like Drown in Dreams right here, you're only going to lose 3 life because that's the converted mana cost of the spell. So keep that in mind. You can then use X spells as efficient win cons, or just value pieces, because they're not going to lose you as much life. Now this deck, of course, wants to mill so that we can, have cards to exile for Delve. It wants to gain life so that we don't die while casting spells. And then, of course, it wants to go off with really big spells that we're going to cast for cheap with Delve. Now, the small problem, of course, is Teval is kind of a removal magnet. Players see this, they know what you're up to, and it's probably going to get struck down. So, of course, if you're building this deck with a little bit of higher budget, Commander's Plate, Lightning Greaves, all of that good protection is probably going to be useful, but this deck is definitely going more all in just what it wants to do. So, of course, first off, we have cycling. Now, these aren't really cycling, but the idea is you delve 1 card to cast them for free, right? And then you put 1 mana in to sacrifice them, add 1 mana back, so you've gone mana neutral. Then they draw you a card, which is another card in hand. So you basically cycled them for free, but now they're also in the graveyard, which you can then use for delve. So you've gone mana neutral, mana positive. It's a little hard to explain, but the idea is you can just kind of cycle them and get them out of your hand, while also adding mana, drawing cards. We also have Street Wraith because you can just pay 2 life, discard it, draw a card. So it basically acts as a non-card in the deck because you can just discard it, draw something else. Draw-wise, we have Chart a Course. You can draw 2, and then you discard unless you attack this turn. The chances you attacked are 50-50, because, Teval has lifelink, so it'll help keep you alive either way. But sometimes it's nice just being able to discard, Dredgers, those kind of cards that you want in the graveyard anyway. So discarding can be nice. We have Flux. Each player chooses and discards from his or her hand any number of cards and then draws that many. You then draw a card. So this card makes you go hand neutral at very least. And then, of course, if you delve for 2 to cast it, and then you discard 4 with it, you have more cards in your graveyard than when you started. The idea is you just want to keep casting spells, keep getting cards in the graveyard, and you don't really want to go down in cards in graveyard most of the time. Frantic Search is kind of similar. You're probably not casting this for 3 mana. So untapping 3 lands means you're probably going land positive with it, which is really nice, and it just helps you draw, discard, get cards in your graveyard for for Delve, while also, keeping cards that you want in your hand. Hydroid Krasis, I think, is really cool for this deck, because you can just, we're going to pump 8 into it. We delve as much as we can from the graveyard, and then we get to gain half X life and draw half X cards. So we get to draw 4 and gain 4, which is just going to help us keep our life full. It's going to help us keep our hand full. And we've probably only paid 2 mana for it, because, we paid the X with delve. Merfolk Looter, and to the same extent, Vohar. It's nice just being able to draw and discard to get cards in your graveyard. Vohar also lets you recast something later, which is going to be nice. Vilis, Broker of Blood. Whenever you lose life, you draw that many cards. And of course, Teval is going to be making us lose life. So this is just going to keep our hand full, keep us casting spells, and keep us going. Again, you'll probably cast it for cheaper than 8. Thought Scour, you mill 2 and then draw a card. This is going to help keep your graveyard full, plus it just replaces itself, which is nice. Portent of Calamity and Occult Epiphany. So Occult Epiphany, you draw X, then discard X, and create spirits for each card type among cards discarded this way. Here's the thing. If you pump 10 into X using Delve, you then also are discarding 10 cards. So it basically did not change the number of cards in your graveyard, but it did change the cards in your hand. So you get to pick whatever the best cards you want in your hand and just get rid of the rest to be delved away. Portent of Calamity, very similar. You can exile a card. You reveal the top X. You exile a card of each card type. And then if you exiled 4 or more, you may cast one of them without paying its mana cost. And then put the rest of the exiled cards into your hand. And then all the ones that you didn't exile go in your graveyard. That was really hard for me to explain for some reason. But basically it just keeps your graveyard full, keeps your hand full. Does a little bit of everything. Outside of draw, there's also life gain. So glowing one, yes, it has death touch, so it's a decent blocker. Yes, it can give your opponents rad counters, that's cool and all. What we're really looking for here is whenever a player mills a non-land card, you gain 1 life. So while you're milling yourself out, for delve, you'll also be gaining life to help you stay alive. Gonti's Machinations, whenever you lose life for the first time each turn, Teval makes you lose life. You get an energy counter, then you can pay 2 energy, sacrifice Machinations, each opponent loses 3 life, and you gain life equal to life lost this way. So you gain 9 life in a 4-player game. It's just going to help keep you alive. Horizon Chimera, so ignoring the first 3 abilities, when you draw a card, you gain 1 life. So while it and Vilis are out, whenever you lose life, you'll draw that many cards from Vilis, and then whenever you draw those cards from Vilis, you'll regain that life from Horizon Chimera. So you can kind of go infinite there and just kind of keep your hand full while also losing life. But either way, it's just going to help you gain life while drawing cards, which will just keep you alive. Jaddi Offshoot, great defender, plus it'll help keep you alive with its landfall ability. Revenge of the Ravens, whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, its controller loses a life, you gain a life. Helps keep your life full, while also slowly burning out your opponents. Weather the Storm, the deck can cast a lot of spells on 1 turn, so you can kind of storm off with Weather the Storm, and then you gain 3 life for each of them. So if you've cast 5 spells this turn, you then create 5 copies of Weather the Storm, and gain 18 life total, which will just help you stay alive, which is really important for this deck. Zurin Orb feels like an odd choice. It's partially here for life gain, but the other nice thing you can do is, I have an X spell in my hand, I have Exsanguinate, I have, whatever else. You tap all your lands for mana, you float that mana, and then you sacrifice all your lands, and then you have however many lands you can also delve away for that X spell. So it's just going to help you cast your X spells better, I guess, because it gives you more things to delve away. Now, do you want to sacrifice all your lands most of the time? Probably not, but sometimes that can just lead to you winning the game. Being able to delve an extra 8, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, however many lands you have is just going to be nice. Mill-wise, Cemetery Tampering, mills 3 at the beginning of each turn. You don't really care about the other ability. You're probably never going to have 20 cards in your graveyard, but just milling 3 on each of your turns is going to help keep your graveyard full. Compelling Argument, you can just cycle to draw a card if you need a card, but otherwise it'll mill you 5, which milling 5 means that one of your spells later is going to cost 5 less, which is just pretty good. Dredger's Insight, whenever 1 or more artifacts or creatures leave your graveyard, you gain a life. This includes when you delve them away. You'll be gaining life, which is nice to just help you stay alive, but also when it enters, you mill 4. Sure, you can put an artifact, creature, or land from among them into your hand, so you have at least 3 more cards in your graveyard that you can then, use for delve. Drown in Dreams, as mentioned earlier, there's that whole X thing, so you're never really going to be, losing that much life from it. But also, if your commander's out, you get to have target player draw X cards and target player mill twice X cards. The cool thing about milling twice X is, okay, there's 8 cards in my graveyard, right? So I'm going to delve with the 8, and then we subtract 2 because it automatically costs 2, so 6. So we then mill 12, and we end up with more cards in our graveyard than when we started. So it's just going to help your graveyard get bigger while also keeping your hand full. False Memories, you put the top 7 of your library into your graveyard. At the end of your turn, you remove 7 in your graveyard from the game. The 7 that you put into your graveyard probably are not staying there. I cast False Memories, I mill 7, I then delve away those 7, so basically your next spell just costs 7 less. We also have Golgari Grave-Troll for Dredge. Like I mentioned earlier, being able to discard some of your Dredgers is going to be nice because it'll just help you fill up your graveyard. If you don't know what Dredge does, if you would draw a card, you can mill 6 instead and return this card from your graveyard to your hand. And then Golgari Grave-Troll enters with a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature card in your graveyard, but you're probably not going to have that many creature cards in your graveyard because of Delve. Malevolent Rumble just lets you reveal the top 4 of your library, put a permanent from them into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard, and then you create a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn. So if you delve to pay for the 1, and then you pay 1 green, you then get that spawn, which you can sacrifice for mana, so this almost goes mana neutral. But it'll help keep your graveyard full, it'll give you a blocker, it'll put a permanent into your hand, just does a little bit of everything. Nyx Weaver mills 2 at the beginning of your upkeep, just helps you keep your graveyard full. Otherworldly Gaze lets you surveil 3, so you look at the top 3, put any number of them into the graveyard, and the rest back on top. You can also flashback it to just do it again. It'll help keep your graveyard full. Patchwork Beastie, at the beginning of your upkeep, you mill a card, and then if you have Delirium, it can attack and block. Otherwise, it cannot, but just being able to mill 1 at the beginning of each turn is nice. Psychic Drain, target player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, and you gain X life. So you Psychic Drain, you delve away 8, you mill 8 again, so your graveyard stays the same, plus Psychic Drain, so now your graveyard's at 9, and then you gain 8 life, which will just help keep your life full, which is kind of important for this deck. This is a little bit of mill, a little bit of life gain. Shriekhorn enters with 3 charge counters. You can remove a charge counter to have target player put the top 2 cards of his or her library into the graveyard, so you just tap it, mill 2, mill 2, mill 2. Sure, you can only mill 2 3 times, so you only mill 6 total, but that's just 6 less mana you're going to have to pay later. Stinkweed Imp, basically just here for the Dredge 5. Stitcher Supplier, when it enters or dies, mill 3, so you mill 6 total. Sultai Ascendancy, at the beginning of your upkeep, surveil 2. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top 2 cards of your library, you can put 1 or both into your graveyard, and then put the rest on top. So it'll help you get better draws, and along with getting better draws, it'll help fill up your graveyard. Tome Scour, you just mill 5, which, makes your shit cost less later. Wood Sage, you name a creature, so if you have something like Villas that you're looking for, this can help you find Villas. And then you reveal the top 4 of your library, put all creatures with that name into your hand. So if you find Villas in your top 4, you put them into your hand, and then you put the rest in the graveyard. So this lets you mill 4 every turn, basically, while also helping you find important creatures. So this just does a little bit of everything for you. Ramp-wise, we're playing Arcane Signet. Astral Cornucopia, you can kind of cast it with Delve and just pump all of the cards from your graveyard into it, and it'll give you a return on investment, almost. Let's say you have 9 in your graveyard, so you delve 9, right? Well, since you've delved 9, this then taps for 3 every turn, and it'll kind of pay itself back, especially with your commander being a lightning rod for removal. Even if your commander gets removed, you'll still have some big mana from Astral Cornucopia. Dimir Signet, Edge of Autumn. So if you control 4 or fewer lands, search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. But you can also cycle it by sacrificing a land, which is kind of stupid. But at the same time, you sacrifice a land and you discard it to draw a card. So that's 2 more cards that you can then delve from your graveyard. And you've probably already tapped that land, you've already floated that mana. So it can kind of help you go a little bit up in mana. Very strange. Explore, you can play an additional land and you draw a card. It's just very simple, very good. Golgari Signet, Phial of Galadriel. So if you would draw a card while you have no cards in hand, draw 2 cards instead. This will help you keep your hand extra full, because, not like keep it extra full, but you cast a lot of spells, and if you do end up losing, you go to 0 cards in hand, if you play something to then draw, you'll then be drawing extra cards. And then if you would gain life while you have 5 or less life, you gain twice that much life instead. You can purposefully drop to low life and then play something that's going to gain you a lot of life, to then, double that much life and go to a really high life total. You go down to 5, then you exsanguinate for 10, and then instead of gaining 30 life from that exsanguinate, you then gain 60. And at that point, you basically won the game. Planar Genesis, you look at the top 4, you can put a land from among them onto the battlefield tapped, so it can ramp you if you need it, and if you don't, you put a card from among them into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it's either Impulse or it's ramping you. Either or, it's pretty good. Rampant Growth, you just search for a land, basic, boring, but it's good. Dimir Signet, Soul Ring. Regrowth, just a nice way to get something back that you accidentally mill. Removal-wise, very simple, just Beast Within. Noxious Gearhulk, because it's also going to gain you life. Quag Feast, because it also mills you. Sure, you may not always have a ton of cards in your graveyard, but being able to mill 2 and, kill a 2-drop is still something. Return to Nature, Rewind, because you'll probably cast it for 2 and then untap 4 lands, so you've gone mana positive yet again. Spell Pierce. Tutor-wise, we play Illicit Shipment because you're probably never going to cast it for the full, 5 mana. Sure, it'll still burn you for 5, but you could probably find something to win the game off of it. Waterlogged Teachings, you search for an instant or card with flash, reveal it, put in your hand, then shuffle. So, I'm not entirely sure what you would grab with this. Let me be completely honest. This is more just to grab, removal, to grab more ways to mill, to grab Drown in Dreams. This isn't, a way to grab your win cons, unfortunately. But it's also a land on the other side, so you're not really losing much by playing it. Win con-wise, we have Dread Summons, which each player mills X, so you pump your whole graveyard into it, and then it's going to refill your graveyard. And then for each creature card put into a graveyard this way, you create a tap 2/2. So if you pump 10 into it, each player mills 10, and then for each creature milled this way, you get a 2/2. So this can just kind of finish off games, and then you'll still have cards in your graveyard if you need to play another, win con. Exsanguinate, each opponent loses X life, you gain life equal to the life lost this way. This will keep your life full, and it'll burn out your opponents. Again, just pump everything into it. Profane Transfusion, as well as Repay Kind. So each player's life total becomes the lowest life total among players, so it's probably going to be you. So you play this, for 2 mana, and you lose 7 life by playing it, by the way. So you'll probably be at, low, 10, 15, and then everybody else's life total becomes your life total, and then you can kind of just finish off the game by there with something like Exsanguinate, or the zombies from Dread Summons. Just, you'll figure it out. Profane Transfusion, on the other hand, 2 target players exchange life totals. You create an XX heart equal to the difference in those players' life totals. So if your opponent's at 40 and you're at 10, you switch life totals with them. You're back at 40, so you can cast more spells without having to worry about dying. And then you also create a 30-30. Now, that's a dream situation there, but I mean, either way, it's going to help refill your life so you can continue on in the game. It'll give you a big creature, and it's going to drop one of your opponent's life totals to something pretty low. Time Stretch, of course. I mean, being able to pay 2 mana if you delve with it to take 2 extra turns is pretty good, I would say. And then Villainous Wealth is just a nice X spell. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. You may cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana costs. Just lets you cast a bunch of free shit from your opponent's library. And half the time your opponent's library is just going to be better than yours anyway. I mean, it's a $45 deck, alright? There are a lot of good cards in here. They do a lot of cool stuff with the commander. But in a vacuum, it's going to be probably less cool than your opponent's Craterhoof and their, all their big win cons, all their splashy shit. Land-wise, we play Choked Estuary, Command Tower, Evolving Wilds, Exotic Orchard, Flooded Grove, Foreboding Landscape, Forest, Hinterland Harbor, Islands, Necroblossom Snarl, Swamp, Vine Glimmer Snarl, Viridescent Bog, and Yavimaya Coast. So, just getting into how this deck plays. We go turn 1. Actually, we're gonna pretend our commander's here. Stitcher Supplier, so we mill 3. Okay. Then we go to turn 2. We'll play a... I think we want to play Waterlogged Teachings flipped. Then we go to turn 3. Now we're going to assume Stitcher Supplier died in between turns. So we'll go 1, 2, 3. Draw for turn. And from here, I think we play a Forest. We play a Wood Sage. So now we get to mill 4 every turn, basically. Go to turn 4. Swamp. I think we mill 4 with Wood Sage. We're going to say Villas, because Villas is cool. There is no Villas. So they go in the graveyard. And then we will Otherworldly Gaze to surveil 3. We can make sure we have a land on top, or we just make sure we have Soul Ring on top, put the rest in the graveyard, go to turn 5. So, turn 5, we tap a swamp, we play a Soul Ring, we run out our commander, we move to turn 6. From here, we have Necroblossom Snarl, we have to play tapped. But, I mean, like, look at this. We can chart a course, draw 2, discard a card. We will discard Psychic Drain, and then from here we can bump 17 into... Sorry, we tap Wood Sage, we mill 4. I completely forgot about that. We bump 21 into Dread Summons. Each player mills 21 cards, and then we create a 2/2 zombie for each on turn 6. This deck just can get completely out of hand, and it doesn't really even rely on combos or anything crazy like that. It just gets insane. It gets nutty. It mills cards, it plays huge spells, and it wins the game pretty early if the commander doesn't get removed. Now, of course, I think you might want to include a little bit more protection than I did. In these test games, we don't have an opponent that's going to be removing our shit, but you can really see here what this deck wants to do. Now, to play a secondary hand, I don't think we could keep that. I think we can't keep this. Okay, so we're going down 2, but, like, look at this. Magic players dream of this. So, we're going to look at Choked Estuary. We're going to reveal an island from our hand. We'll play a Soul Ring. We'll play a Golgari Signet. We will play an island for turn. We technically can run out our commander right now. Should we run out our commander right now? Probably not, because it'll just get removed and there's, nothing in our graveyard. But it's out. So, commander's out. We can play a swamp for turn. We can either pump 6 into Dread Summons, which will at least put 4 cards in our graveyard. But I think really we want to go... Weird tapping. Sultai Ascendancy. So at the beginning of our next turn, we're going to surveil 2. We'll put them in the graveyard. We will draw for turn. And then, just kind of continue putting cards in the graveyard, building up value, until eventually we can get to, like, a really explosive Dread Summons. Anything that we mill accidentally, we can get back with Regrowth. And we have our commander out, a 6/6 flying lifelinker. And we can still technically just win with commander damage if we choose to. Now, will I say this deck is, like, overpowered? Probably not. But it does a lot for $45. And I think if you brought this up to a $100 deck, something like that, this deck could go even harder. Do I think it could be played at a CEDH level? Probably. I think this commander has a lot of potential. It gives you a lot of value. Being able to cash it for so cheap is insane. That being said, this has been MTG Man. Will I cover the other dragons? I don't know. It really depends on how I'm feeling. Because I was really getting into the Betor Saproling deck. I have that mostly completed. And then I got it paused because I got stuck on turtles for a second for some fucking reason. And I don't know. Deck building paralysis, I guess. Where you just freeze up thinking about how many decks there are to build and how many cards are coming out. But that being said, I will see you in the next one. Be good people or something. Peace.